your host, Doreen Steenland, and today I'd like to welcome our guest, Chris Coursey. The population that we're dealing with is under extreme stress at work um, for multiple reasons, and we won't go into them in this specific segment, but that stress interferes with their relationships, not only at work, but at home with their families and their children and all areas of their life it's impacting. So these people are going home depleted and exhausted. So let's start by talking about the energy factor first. How do people recharge when they're feeling depleted?
This is such an important topic. I know a lot of people are feeling like their batteries are low. Their relational batteries just don't have the charge that they're used to. And so what my wife and I do is we train relational skills. And so relational skills are these habits your brain learns from others, usually family and community, if they have these skills. And there's a few of them that really stand out when I think about people that are just feeling depleted and they just don't have that energy that they would like, and they just can't enter into the joy with their family and their friends. So there's one skill that's often overlooked, but it really sets the stage for all the skills, and that is the skill of quieting. So your brain, your nervous system actually has a rhythm of high energy joy and low energy rest. And so we ideally have this rhythm where we connect, we interact, we build some joy, but then we can take a breather. And in our world, one of the skills that's fading, unfortunately, is the skill of being able to practice what we call simple quiet. And so this is when we take a relational pause to catch our breath. And Alan Shore out of UCLA basically says our ability to have that rhythm of low energy rest and then enter into high energy joy is really the greatest predictor for lifelong mental health. So how well I can, basically apply the brakes when I need to slow down and pull over and rest, and then how well I can enter in and be able to use the accelerator to build some joy. So this quieting skill at the end of the day, Doreen, really is the key here to help us be able to enter in relationally. We just need to take a time out, put the phone aside, take a few minutes and do some quieting.
Important things that I want to pause you here because I don't want to miss them. The first thing you said is if they learned these relational skills. So I know personally, I came from parents who, I was raised in the 60s and 70s, right? And we didn't have these tools back then. So our parents did the best that they could. But many of us right now that are struggling with this stress, we're not raised with these skills. So can you say a little bit about that for us?
That's a great point. And that is the case. That was the case for me as well. My loving family, but they just didn't have a lot of these skills. And so when the quieting skill's not present, then what happens is our brain learns what I call pseudo quieting or pseudo rest. And these are usually non-relational alternatives. So even though your nervous system needs that rhythm of joy and rest, what happens is if I don't enter into the quiet states, then quieting I can feel some resistance to pausing, some resistance to quieting. And that's where we actually need a little bit of practice. And so I can remember when I first started to really learn this skill, it felt foreign to me. I wanted to go do stuff. I didn't want to pause for a few minutes. I wanted to stay busy, whether it was working or whatever. Like my brain had lots of things I wanted to do, but with a little bit of practice. So just on a regular basis, set a timer for 3 minutes, for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be very long. And the goal, as we know, the importance of deep breathing, right? Deep breathing actually helps you enter into the low energy quieting states. Daniel Siegel, a great neuroscientist, basically, he'll have people lay on the floor with a book on their belly and watch the book go up and down as you just quiet and take a few minutes to practice the deep breathing. And the important part of this is we're pausing, but we're also noticing the effects of quieting. And so as I quiet, as I press that pause button, I breathe. I just try to relax my body, my muscles, try to quiet my mind and my thoughts. that's very restorative. But a lot of us have a hard time entering into that. So, for example, I have a son that has very high energy. He needs to go run around the house a few times before he can enter into the low energy rest state. So some of us, maybe we need to go work out, maybe we need to go for a run. We need to go for a bike ride. We need to do something to burn off some energy, and then it's a little easier to enter in. But the end of the day, it's the practice. We have to practice and fiercely protect small windows throughout the day, whether it's a lunch break, coffee break, whatever you have to work with under the conditions you're working under. Take a breather, even if it's a 90-second quieting, breathe deeply, and then notice how that feels. And what that does is that's a big part of charging your battery. So even before people get home and walk through the door, just sit in your car for a few moments and breathe. Maybe try to think about some highlights from your day. If it was a really hard day and you just kind of feel like roadkill, try to find some positive memories that you can activate, which actually can help the quieting. So thinking about, what you're thankful for, gratitude, thinking about some of the good things, good moments, whatever it may be, accessing those actually helps us better enter into the quieting state. Otherwise, we try to quiet and our brain just kind of wants to keep running and racing, and then then we feel discouraged. But in the beginning, that's going to happen. And I tell people that's okay. In the beginning, your brain's going to do what it's trained to do, good, bad, or ugly. Expect a little resistance in the beginning, but with practice, you will actually get to the point where you start craving those pauses and you're craving those chances to catch your breath.
Wow, so good. And so these pauses can happen all day at work also. So once you learn to build them into one part of your day, you can expand and create these little 1 or 2 minute, 3 minute blocks in your day. And think about the importance of giving yourself 3 minutes of your hour each day,
That's right.
right?
I love that. It's practical. We can do that.
We can do that, right?
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yeah.
How much of a difference would that make in our relationships if we could just get to that place of quiet and still presence, like regrounding.
Yeah, that's it. And that's it. And a little bit goes a long way. That's what I tell people, like just a little bit goes a long way. And just notice the effects of the quieting on your body, on your breathing, on your muscle tension. I tell people to like scan your body and just notice how that feels. Some people actually have to like tense their muscles and then relax them. That helps to kind of shift the gear to get out of that high energy state, whether it's anger, fear, whatever it might be. Yeah, just take a little bit of practice. We could do
Yes.
it.
And I love what you said about your son.
Mm.
Because we all have those family members that have that extra energy, right? They might be a little borderline on the fight flight response from
Yes.
stress, right?
Yeah.
And your brain doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat. And it also doesn't know the difference between running from that lion and doing some jumping jacks.
Yes. That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So those jumping jacks actually trigger your brain and say, hey, the stress is over. You don't have to run
Yes.
anymore. You can relax now. You're safe.
That's right. That's right. And one of the biggest culprits to quieting also is our phones. I tell people,
Oh,
research tells us about 2/3 of us hold our breath when we pick up our phone. So we're actually in that same vein where we're bracing for something stressful to happen the moment we pick up our phones. And we know from research, even when people's phones are turned off, we're still thinking about our phones within so many seconds. And so just even giving yourself permission to do those jumping jacks, to do those, put the phone away, to do the things that really helps you be able to practice. But we get very discouraged in the beginning because it does feel hard to do, like, wow, my mind is racing. Why am I doing this? And I just encourage people, with a little bit of practice, creating these habits, they will start to feel more natural. But in the first, 2 weeks of doing this, expect that it's going to feel a little foreign or a little awkward.
I couldn't agree with you more. One client I was working with recently, we began to do some of these little exercises. And I asked her what her experience was of it afterwards. And she said, I was frustrated because I
Mm,
kept thinking about my problem. I kept
yeah.
going back, and I said, you know what? That is normal.
Yes.
While we're practicing, we need to keep coming back, acknowledge it's okay. It's okay that you drifted back to that state.
Yeah.
Now we're going to come back here and refocus again. And the more
Good.
we do that, the easier it gets and the more control of our inner person that we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, that's right. And that feels so encouraging and refreshing when we can, yeah,
Yeah.
get back into the driver's seat, so to speak, and help our body and our mind be able to quiet and rest. And a little bit goes a long way, and it really will help us then have the focus and the energy and the joy when we get home and we interact with our family members. And I find, as a parent, just practicing this myself and inviting my family to practice with me, even if it's just a simple quieting moment, before we have dinner or after dinner, just taking a moment. Everybody benefits, and you can just feel the difference in the room when everybody just takes a moment to quiet and rest and come up for air.
Yeah. So this is a great tip, but what else can these people do to fix potential relationship um
Yeah.
conflicts? Should I
Yeah. Yeah. Conflict's a good word. Strain
training?
is
Yeah.
another good word.
Yes, yes.
A lot of us are feeling that. And one of the points I make in the Joy Switch book that I wrote is our brain has this relational circuit breaker that, is very much like a circuit breaker in your house. If you plug in a hair dryer into an outlet, turn it on, and then, the switch flips and you have to go to the circuit board and turn it back on. So we have this relational circuit breaker, and quieting is one way to help activate it when it starts to fade. Basically, when it's on, it's easy to build some joy with people, and it's easier to connect and to be present and to have my attention and so forth on whoever I'm interacting with. But when it starts to fade or starts to go offline, then I tend to focus on pain and problems, or I focus on threats, or I focus on the thing that's robbing my joy.
Mm.
And that pokes a hole in our joy balloons really quickly when we can't shift out of some of those stuck places. And so the other skill that I have people practice is what we call creating appreciation. So appreciation is remembering joy and remembering times of joy, and very specifically making it a habit of, as I said earlier, thinking about the highlights, but particularly learning to focus on interactions that were meaningful, moments or conversations that were life-giving or refreshing, just moments you felt seen, heard, or understood. And, making it a practice of activating those joy files, it just has a very restorative effect on our mind, on our brain, on our nervous system, on our body. And it really helps us to be able to stay present. And so you've got that low energy quieting, but if you can even just make it a habit of, at the end of your day, thinking about the good stuff from your day. We don't dismiss the hard stuff, but we don't need to keep replaying the hard stuff. Or we just, yeah, it was a hard day, but here were some highlights from my day. And doing this practice with my wife just transformed our interactions, because we were able to, reflect on those good things. And even in the hard times, being able to activate joy really gives us the strength to stay relational when things start to get hard. And so I encourage people, yeah, make a practice, however that looks, looking at pictures in your phone, or, typing out those special moments. Just take a few minutes. We recommend at least 3 minutes of doing that exercise.
That is so good because your brain has this negativity bias, right?
Yes.
And it will always go to what is negative and bring attention there, right? Because it's trying to
Yeah,
keep you safe.
that's right.
So it's just doing what it's supposed to do, but
Yes.
we get to change that pathway and make it focus on gratitude and joy, right? So
Yes.
building this appreciation is huge, Chris.
Yeah. It really is. It changes everything, and it really gives us some resilience to Return to joy when things go wrong. That's another important skill. Like I have to learn, how do I get back to joy from my anger, from my fear, disgust, despair, shame? And so when we're practicing these habits, it really does give us the strength to bounce back or recover when things go wrong. And we all need that. We all need that ability to be able to recover when things go wrong and return to our relational selves, so to speak.
Yes. And let's just clarify, we're not talking about Pollyanna positivity
That's
here.
right. That's
We're
right.
not talking about ignoring our
Yeah.
problems.
That's
We're
right.
not la 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 la. No, no, no.
Yeah.
That's not what we're
No.
saying, right? We're talking
No.
about bringing them in the light of the eyes of gratitude and
Yes.
love so we can filter solutions through those lenses instead of the lenses of negativity and fear.
Yeah, that's so important what you just said, because really our brain has to learn to manage what I feel at the end of the day. And so these practices really help us better manage what we feel so we don't get stuck.
Yes.
That's the key, because bad things are going to happen. Hard stuff's going to happen. It is. I mean, we can't avoid it, but if we can put these practices in place, it will give us the ability not to get stuck when those things happen, and to be able to, be our relational selves, even while we navigate, whether it's conflicts or strain, whatever that might be, we can stay our relational selves in the midst of them. And that really is a game changer.
And I love that because, as you say in your book, when we're our relational selves, we are our best selves, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
who we really want to be as leaders, as parents, as husbands and wives. We want to show up as our best selves. And that's where the conflict comes from us, because we want to do that, but we don't always do what we want to do.
That's it. And you said it well. And my friend Jim Wilder uses the
Oh,
picture of a bucket. And
oh,
so we all have a certain capacity bucket, which is, this is how much I can handle before I lose it. And so some of us, we have just big bucket like this. You could pour a lot of distress or pressure or strain into it, and I can still handle it. But when it starts to fill up and overflow, that's when I become non-relational. And so these practices that we're talking about really give us a larger, what we call joy bucket, which means I can handle more hard stuff and I can still be someone that reflects my values, even in the hard times.
wow. And when we're living in our values and we're connected with other humans, not only do we feel better about ourselves, we show up in all of our situations more loving, and we are more confident because we don't
Yes.
have this cognitive dissonance, right? Where we're not doing what we want to do. That
Yes.
always disrupts us and deflates our confidence.
It does. And what happens with each new day becomes a blank canvas where you can put some beautiful, painting and drawings on that canvas with each day, and not carry into each day the pain or the problems from the day before. So in a sense, this gives us kind of a reset each day. It charges our battery, so we really stay the best version of ourselves. We keep relationships bigger than problems, as my colleagues like to put it. So we are able to navigate things well in a very life-giving way, with curiosity, creativity, and kindness.
I love what you're saying because we're pressing that reset button, we're starting recharged, but the problem from yesterday might still be there. So now what?
So what I would do is I would have people be able to quiet and get relational, and we can get relational with appreciation, joy, gratitude. And some of us are the high energy. We need to maybe go work out, go for a run. Helps us get relational, and then we come and approach these problems with curiosity and creativity. And so part of being relational means that all the cylinders in our relational brain is running. It's on fire in a good way. And so we come to problems in a way that feels manageable, and we can handle what we're feeling, and we can keep relationships intact, and we can tackle these problems with some creativity and see what comes out of it. Otherwise, if we don't have that charge in our battery, then problems become very big, very consuming.
Yeah,
We lose our joy real quick.
yeah. That is so good. Now, let's talk for a moment if we can. And this might be a curveball for you, and if you don't
Okay.
want to go here, that's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about a conversation that someone might have over a conflict that they want to resolve. They've reset their switch,
Yeah.
they've refilled their bucket, and now we have to have a tough conversation with somebody.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so we have what's called relational sandwiches as part of our training.
Okay, good.
And so relational sandwiches, when if you have a problem you need to work out with someone, you have a conflict, you need to address them. So you have two pieces of bread and then you have some, meat in the middle or something in the middle. And so a relational sandwich is when the first piece of bread, you start out with what you appreciate about this person. So if it's a colleague, I might say, hey, you know what? I really appreciate that you're very dedicated. I know you to be a dedicated person. So that's the first piece of bread, right?
Okay, and wait, let's stop there
Okay.
because what you said was so natural,
Yeah.
and I don't want them to miss it. You didn't point out what they do. You
Right.
pointed
That's
out
right.
who they are.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's more of an identity. You
Yep.
are this. You're
Yeah.
speaking into their personhood,
That's
not what
right.
they do.
Huge. Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. We
Sorry.
want to highlight that. No, that's huge because it's very easy to miss that.
Yes.
And you're exactly right. So this is
Because
this is what I
it
know.
feels different when you say, I love that you did a good job. Well, then somebody might think, well, that's pretty judgmental. I did a good
Yes.
job this time, but maybe not next
Yes.
time.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
And so their
Yep.
brain starts going and then they get defensive.
Yes.
But
You're
when
right.
we're focusing on who they are as a person,
Yeah.
that is like, that's even an elevator for them.
Yeah, you're right. It is. And it helps keep them relational because they feel seen,
Yeah.
maybe even appreciated. And it helps keep me relational because I'm remembering what I appreciate and enjoy about this person.
Yes.
So that's why that first step is key.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's a great clarification because if we don't get the first step right, then the sandwich is not going to be a very satisfying sandwich.
No.
So that's the first step. I like how you said it, focusing on the identity, what we enjoy about the person. And then we introduce, okay, here's what's robbing the joy here in the relationship. So here's the problem. And I might say, after affirming what I enjoy about this person, the next step would be, I'm really sad that we're having a hard time communicating here and we're not hearing each other. So this is what's wrong. This is what we're going to have to address.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting words to the iceberg that we're crashing into.
Yeah.
And here's the problem, but there's another piece here to the sandwich, which is what I not only know about this person, but what I look forward to as we work this out. So again, it's about the person. It would be, something about who I know them to be. And so it might be, I've seen you do hard things and I've really appreciated how your tenacity to be able to solve problems. So I'm looking forward to working this out together.
Yes.
So this is the piece of, okay, you know what? Here's what I observe, or here's who I know you to be. This is what I enjoy about you. But what we've done is we've sandwiched this problem in the relationship that keeps us relational as we navigate this terrain. And we can go back to that anytime we lose that, but it helps us be able to navigate these conflicts and solve these problems in a relational way. And I tell people, when you're interacting with someone and you notice you've lost your peace, pause and get your peace back.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to say, hey, let's take a breather. I'm noticing I'm getting defensive. I'm noticing I'm getting frustrated. Give yourselves permission to say, let's just take a breather and let's do this again. Otherwise, if we get non-relational, the problem suddenly becomes bigger.
Yes. I want to just highlight what I noticed about what you said. What I noticed was there was no blame.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
There
right.
was this idea of togetherness and solving the problem together. And
Yes.
this idea of hope that we can solve this problem. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing how creative we can be to get it done.
Yes. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
it's like an excitement almost instead of a downer conversation. right? It's like, hey, we just like hit this iceberg and
Yes.
we're going to work through this together. And I can't wait to see how we're going to do this.
And it's going to give us better outcomes. It,
Yeah.
it really is. It's going to help us learn that we can handle these speed bumps so they don't become bigger issues, bigger problems. And it really does help us be able to stay creative while we navigate this and remember who we are so
Yeah.
we don't forget who we are and say and do things that don't really reflect our values.
And what I love about this is that it's not ignoring the problem. I think sometimes we have these little relational speed bumps, as you call them, and then we think it's best to ignore them.
Yeah.
And what happens is that festers underneath the surface for you and potentially them, and it's creating division instead of that togetherness, that relational aspect of what's so important about us as humans.
Yes, that's just so well said. It really does help us to handle these things in a way that is going to be good for the environment, because if we don't, it is going to fester. It will come out. We just don't know how it's going to come out, but that frustration or that hurt, that stuff's going to leak out inevitably, and things just can build and come out in ways we don't want or we might regret. So yeah, just we'll feel so much more satisfied being able to acknowledge it, put words to this, work it out. You actually start to feel closer to people when you can do this process with them. Like you actually enjoy them more when you can address it and be relational and deal with it. It is incredibly satisfying. But you're right. Sometimes it's a little scary to maybe try this. Maybe because conflict has been something that's not been, demonstrated well in our own lives.
So once again, we're back to that old parenting thing that we learned, right?
Yeah.
Unconsciously, we learned these lessons in our lives that conflict is scary, and it doesn't have to be. It could be a time of rejoicing. It could be a time of creativity. It could be a time of hope and exploration if we choose to make it that way. And another thing I heard about what you were saying through the whole conversation, what I heard was respect.
Yes.
Mutual respect.
Yes.
And how might our workforce and our environments change if we approached each other with mutual respect?
That's huge. And you know what? When we feel and when we have that mutual respect in our environment, we feel valued and we feel seen, heard, and understood, which really, those are the ingredients that really, in many ways determine how well we can navigate those speed bumps. Do we help people feel seen, heard, and understood? If we don't, then we end up feeling alone. And those create really tough conditions to navigate the hard stuff.
Yes. Oh boy. I feel like we could sit here all day, but I want to honor our participants' time. We said we were keeping these to 30 minutes. So do you have any last minute things that you want to just leave us with?
I think the final thought I would share is, as we stay a non-anxious presence by practicing these habits, that is contagious. We can be known by our ability to have peace and joy. And so holding on to peace and joy, or getting back to peace and joy when we lose it, helps us to stay non-anxious. And that spreads like a wildfire in a very positive, life-giving way in our environment.
Oh, that's so good.